The road was quiet after the rain. The golden savanna stretched endlessly under a heavy gray sky. An ambulance was making its way back from a rescue, its tires cutting through the damp red dirt. Inside, paramedic Lisa Carter sat silently, watching the world pass by through the streaked glass. The air smelled of wet earth and distant thunder. The team was exhausted, ready to return to base. But nothing could have prepared them for what was about to happen next. Because that day, something would unfold that no one could explain. A story of loyalty and love so powerful that it would leave the entire world in tears. They had just rounded a bend when the driver suddenly slammed on the brakes. The ambulance screeched to a halt, the tires sliding slightly in the mud. And then they saw it, a lion, standing in the middle of the road. A huge, magnificent male, his mane darkened by rain, his amber eyes fixed firmly on the vehicle. For a moment, no one moved. Lisa froze in her seat, her heart hammering. The driver whispered, "Oh no, not now." The lion took a step forward. His muscles rippled under the wet fur, and his tail flicked once in the rain. Everyone expected him to roar, to charge, to attack. But instead, he did something that left them completely speechless. The lion stood up on his hind legs. He raised his front paws and pressed them together, like hands clasped in prayer. For a second, it looked almost human. Then he dropped back down, took a few steps toward the forest, and looked over his shoulder. Once. Twice. Then back at them again. It was as if he was trying to say something. Trying to ask for something. Lisa felt a strange shiver run through her body. "I think he wants us to follow him," she said softly. The driver turned to her in disbelief. "Lisa, that's insane. It's a wild lion." But Lisa couldn't look away from the animal's eyes. There was no aggression in them. No hunger. Just urgency, and something else. Desperation. Before anyone could stop her, Lisa grabbed her medical bag, opened the door, and stepped out into the rain. The lion stood completely still. Then, as if relieved, he turned and began to walk toward the forest. Lisa followed. The driver shouted after her, but she didn't turn back. Something inside her told her that this was right. The forest swallowed them both, the human and the lion, as the rain continued to fall softly through the leaves. The ground was slick with mud, and the air was thick with the scent of wet grass and bark. Lisa followed the large paw prints, her boots squelching with every step. Her heart pounded in her chest. She didn't know where the lion was leading her, or what she would find. Then, through the patter of rain, she heard it. A faint sound. A groan. She pushed through a cluster of ferns and gasped. There, lying half hidden among the leaves, was a man, a park ranger. His face was pale, his lips slightly blue. A radio lay broken beside him. Lisa dropped to her knees, checked his pulse, and felt a faint but steady beat. He was alive, barely. She tore open her medical bag, started CPR, and tried to stabilize him. The lion stood a few feet away, silent and watchful, his golden eyes fixed on her every move. He didn't growl. He didn't move. He just watched, as if understanding that she was trying to save the man. Lisa called for her team through the radio, shouting coordinates through the static. Within minutes, the ambulance arrived at the edge of the forest. The others rushed in, lifted the unconscious ranger onto a stretcher, and carried him carefully back to the vehicle. Lisa climbed inside and attached an oxygen mask to the man's face. As they sped away down the muddy road, she looked out the back window, and there he was. The lion stood at the edge of the trees, watching them go. Then he lifted his head and let out a long, low roar. It wasn't a roar of rage. It was a roar of farewell. The sound echoed through the plains and faded into the rain. Lisa felt tears in her eyes. She knew she had witnessed something extraordinary. The ranger's name, she later learned, was Daniel Mwangi, a veteran wildlife protector who had spent more than 20 years defending animals from poachers in Tsavo National Park. He had devoted his life to the wild, rescuing countless creatures, often at great risk to himself. But Lisa had never met him before. She only knew that somehow, a lion had found him dying in the forest and had brought her to him. When Daniel finally regained consciousness the next day, his first words were weak but clear. "Is the lion safe?" Lisa smiled. "Yes. He's back in the forest." Daniel closed his eyes, took a long breath and whispered, "He remembered me." 6 months earlier, Daniel had been on patrol when he came across a young male lion caught in a poacher's snare. The steel wire had twisted deep into the lion's leg, cutting through flesh and muscle. The animal was exhausted, terrified, and bleeding badly. Daniel knew he had only minutes to act. He called for backup, used a tranquilizer dart to calm the lion, and spent hours carefully removing the wire and cleaning the wound. The lion nearly died that night, but Daniel refused to give up. He stayed with him, whispering softly to keep him calm as the stars rose over the savanna. When morning came, the lion finally stood, weak but alive. Daniel watched as the great creature limped away into the grasslands. He had named him Kuma, which meant grace. He never saw him again, until now. When Daniel told Lisa the story, everything made sense. The lion that had stopped the ambulance, the desperate plea for help, the eyes that seemed to remember her, it was Kuma. Somehow, in the depths of the wild, the lion had remembered the man who once saved him. And when he found Daniel lying unconscious after a heart attack, he had done something no one believed a lion could do. He had gone for help. He had walked miles across the plains, following the scent of fuel and the sound of sirens, until he found the ambulance on that lonely road. And then he had begged for the life of the man who had once spared his. The story spread around the world within days. News outlets called it a miracle of nature. Scientists described it as an extraordinary act of cross-species empathy. Photos and reenactments flooded social media. People couldn't stop talking about it. The lion who remembered, the ranger who cared, and the paramedic who followed her instincts into the forest. Artists painted Kuma's face. Children wrote letters to Daniel. Even seasoned doctors who had seen countless tragedies admitted that this story brought them to tears. It reminded everyone that compassion was not limited to humans, that love could cross the boundaries of species. 3 months after Daniel's recovery, he returned to the park. He wanted to see Kuma one more time. Lisa went with him, standing beside him as the sun dipped low over the horizon. 4 hours, they waited near the forest's edge. Then, just as the light began to fade, a familiar figure appeared from the tall grass. A lion, strong and proud, with a golden mane glowing in the sunset. Kuma stopped a few meters away, his eyes calm and full of recognition. Daniel's voice trembled as he whispered, "Thank you, my friend." The lion blinked slowly, then turned and disappeared back into the wilderness. It was goodbye, but also a promise. Neither of them would forget. In a world where cruelty often overshadows compassion, this story reminded millions that kindness never truly disappears. Every act of goodness, every choice to help, to protect, to love, leaves an echo that can travel farther than we ever imagine. One day, a man saved a lion. Months later, that lion saved the man. It wasn't coincidence. It was gratitude. It was proof that memory and love run deeper than instinct, deeper than fear, deeper even than survival itself. Lisa still tells the story whenever people ask her why she became a paramedic. She always smiles and says, "Because even in the wildest places on Earth, compassion finds a way." And if you ever doubt that animals can feel, or that the wild is only about survival, remember Kuma, the lion who stood in the rain, not to fight, but to ask for help. Remember Daniel, the ranger who risked everything to save a creature he didn't have to. And remember that kindness, once given, always finds its way back.